Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Victor again with my Ioniq 5. We're just wrapping up the end of our 4th month of ownership with our Ioniq 5, and to date, it's still been the best car that I have ever owned. So what's new? Well, actually quite a bit. Let's start it off with seeing our highest estimated range to date on the driver's display. As always with estimated range, there are so many factors at play, but considering that I'm driving an all-wheel drive Limited, which comes with the 20-inch wheel standard and that heavy vision roof, I really should be getting the worst range efficiency of all of the Ioniq 5 trim levels. So seeing that 367 miles of range is actually pretty exciting. Now, I don't consider myself a hypermiler. I'm not trying to draft behind trucks. I'm not trying to drive below the speed limit. If anything, I'm not doing anything extreme to get good efficiency. But the flip side is I actually do enjoy trying to get good numbers, but I do that within pretty normal driving habits. So anyways, I've seen a lot of people ask for help on the forums. My plan is to put together a tips and tricks video for how to do some of the stuff that I'm doing to try to get better range and better efficiency. And like I said, I don't consider myself an expert on this by any means, but I feel like I've gotten a decent grasp of how to drive our cars efficiently. So keep an eye out for that video, hopefully coming soon. Next up is driving an auto regen. So most of my driving is in the city, as you know, lots of stop and go, and I'm rarely getting up to highway speeds. So when I originally was testing out auto regen early in my ownership experience, it was mostly being done in city driving, and it just was not very good for my use case at lower speeds. It didn't seem to work. I would have to slam on the brakes myself to stop the car, and then at higher speeds, if there was anything remotely in view, it felt like the car would not let me coast, even in the lowest auto regen setting. So all in all, my early test experiences were not great for my personal driving style. But fast forward a couple weeks ago, and I just randomly decided to try it out again. This time I was sitting in moderate traffic conditions on the highway, where the traffic flow just kept changing up and down, constantly shuffling between 30 to about 50 miles per hour. So a lot of moderate braking involved. Well, all of a sudden that auto regen system just came to life. It started doing its thing where it would automatically toggle between different regen levels to the point that if a car was slowing down in front of me, I would take my foot off the accelerator pedal and I would also keep it off the brake pedal because the auto regen system was able to automatically keep a safe distance between me and the car that's slowing down ahead of me. And as you know, I love braking without having to use the pedals, and it feels very similar to having highway drive assist turned on, but specifically for braking situations, though there are still some differences. And I'll probably also do a separate video for this one in the future, where I'll focus on just studying the auto regen system in depth, because the system is very complex. There are actually a lot of programming rules that I'm just finally starting to understand. In fact, I think it was my lack of understanding these rules and parameters in the first place that made me dislike the auto regen system. I was trying to use it in scenarios where it just didn't match my preferred driving style, and honestly, I was trying it in situations where it probably wasn't meant to be used. So stay tuned for that. But before we move on, I do want to highlight one key feature about the auto regen system, and that would be getting to see what the car's computer is doing in auto regen mode. In real time, you get to see when and what regen level the car thinks is appropriate, which to me is a really neat experience. I always wished that was possible when I had highway drive assist turned on. But as you know, with highway drive assist turned on, it actually hides the regen level gauge, so you don't get to see what it's processing or doing in real time. So anyways, I would really encourage owners to give auto regen another shot. But try it out in moderate traffic conditions where for me it really shined. Just make note, it will not automatically bring you to a full stop, so you need to be careful with that. You'll have to take over for the full stop situations. And if you don't really feel like you understand the parameters of the programming enough, then maybe wait till I make that video about the regen system in auto mode before you start trying it out. Number 3 on the list of new things I'm appreciating is actually the steering wheel. That flat bottom steering wheel in our Ioniq 5s. Now I've been switching back and forth driving in my Volvo and the Ioniq 5 a little more recently, and I'm realizing how much I really like that flat bottom steering wheel with the two-spoke design. I wasn't sure how I felt about it originally when I first got the car, but now after 4 months, I just love it, and I couldn't imagine driving without it. I find myself resting my hand on that flat portion just naturally when I'm not using the Regen paddles. And even switching back to the Volvo, where I don't have paddles, my hand or my wrist just can't quite seem to find the perfect, comfortable spot. I end up grabbing that left bottom quadrant of the steering wheel. It's kind of the best I can do, but my hand is still actively hanging or holding on, and it's not awful, but it puts a little bit of strain on my wrist, whereas with the Ioniq 5's flat bottom, two-spoke design, where there's nothing on the bottom half, it just makes it that much easier to rest my hand there with no strain at all. Number 4 on the list, and I've mentioned this before, would be the 360-degree camera system. And it's been super useful for me when I have to navigate through very narrow streets. I didn't have this on my previous daily driver, but that Volvo had a bit more ground clearance. So for me, climbing curbs and sidewalks back then wasn't that difficult with the Volvo. But the Ioniq 5 has a little less ground clearance. So the camera system helps me get through these very narrow streets without having to climb the curb or the sidewalk in many cases. Also, I'm constantly worrying about damaging my rims when I'm trying to climb curbs, or that maybe I'll damage something underneath once I'm up there. So like I said with my previous Volvo daily driver, I definitely would have tried to climb this curb here. I would not have tried to squeeze by staying on the road surface, because without the 360-degree camera showing me the front of the car, I'd only have a margin of error of around 1.5 inches on each side, which is doable but really difficult when you're guessing without being able to see that front passenger side. So if you have narrow streets where you live, I think the 360-degree camera system is well worth it, as the car proved to me during this past month. So those have been the 4 pleasant surprises during this 4th month of ownership. Next up, I want to give a quick update about something I touched upon in the 3-month update, which is driving in normal drive mode versus driving in eco drive mode. And the truth is, I've actually seen a slight increase in my overall historical efficiency number. And as you also mentioned in the beginning, I just saw my highest estimated range figure to date with 367 miles of estimated range on a full charge. So that may have a little bit to do with the warmer weather and how that affects the batteries, but it really does feel like I'm getting better overall efficiency with normal drive mode. I was seeing about 3.6 miles per kilowatt over the past month, and then it recently jumped to 3.7 miles per kilowatt. Now, I typically see somewhere between 4 to 4.5 miles per kilowatt during my normal daily commutes, but this historical number factors in early ownership miles, like driving it back home from the dealer, an early road trip, and just a lot of miles on the freeway where I was just kind of experimenting with the car, having fun with it, and not really caring about efficiency. So my expectation is that over the next few months, I should see this number creep up to around 4 miles per kilowatt. And like I said, this is all being done in normal drive mode. So if you haven't given it a chance, give it a try, and give yourself a month or two to compare it to driving in eco drive mode and see if you notice a difference with range efficiency. So that about wraps it up for our 4-month update. Like I said before, I'm still loving my Ioniq 5. I still think it's the best car that I have ever purchased to date. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. What's your ownership experience been like as time has gone on? Are there any new features that you've just never really noticed before? Then all of a sudden you're like, hey, this is great. So looking forward to chatting it up with you guys in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.